Welcome back, everyone, to the deep dive. So today we're diving into something pretty fascinating, actually.
Yeah.
You sent over this academic paper,
Right.
and it looks at modern Chinese society through the lens of this popular TV show
Uh-huh.
called Nothing But 30.
Okay.
Have you seen it?
I haven't seen it, but I did read the paper you sent over.
Yeah. It sounds really juicy, honestly.
It does, yeah.
But the paper is all about this concept of individualization.
Yeah, individualization is, well, it's basically like a shift
Okay.
away from those traditional values like family duty and the collective good. And it's more about
Oh, right.
moving towards like personal goals, desires, that kind of thing.
So is the paper saying that Nothing But 30 is like a reflection of those changes happening in real life?
Exactly. It follows these three women in Shanghai, and their stories show how career aspirations, marriage, all that stuff is viewed differently by like this new generation.
So who are these women? Like, what are their stories? How do they show individualization in action?
So we have Wang Manni,
Okay.
who's single, very career-driven.
Okay.
Then there's Guanxi. She's like this entrepreneurial powerhouse
Okay.
behind her family's business.
Got it. Yeah.
And then finally there's Mao Xiaotong,
Okay.
who wants to find love and have a happy marriage.
So like three totally different paths.
Exactly. But they're all dealing with this changing social landscape.
Let's start with Wang Manni then.
Okay.
Because the paper uses her as an example of how marriage in China,
Yeah,
it's not the only path for women anymore.
exactly.
Yeah.
And they bring in the work of Deborah Davis,
Oh, the sociologist. Yeah.
who argues that marriage in China is becoming more privatized.
What does that mean?
Meaning it's less about like family obligations or state influence and more about what the individual wants.
So it's like a personal choice.
Exactly.
It's pretty mind-blowing when you think about how important family and tradition have been in China.
I know, right? And what's even crazier is that even the Chinese Communist Party
Wow, really?
is acknowledging this shift.
So Wang Manni deciding to focus on her career and not get married, that's a pretty good deal then.
Huge. And the paper also connects this to women gaining more financial independence.
Right, okay.
There's actually this anecdote about this elderly woman who buys a diamond necklace after her divorce.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it symbolizes her freedom and financial security.
That's powerful.
And all this ties back to those revised marriage laws that give women more protection
Right.
if they get divorced.
Yeah.
So now they can leave unhappy situations
No.
and pursue their own goals.
Okay, let's talk about Gujia now.
Sure.
This ambitious entrepreneur.
Yeah.
She's the driving force behind her family's fireworks company.
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious, though, how does her story connect to this individualization thing?
Well, Gujia really embodies the rise of private enterprise in China.
Okay.
For decades, the economy was state-controlled.
Right.
But since the late 1980s,
Yeah.
there's been this massive boom in private businesses.
So it's giving people a chance to build their own wealth.
Exactly. And it's allowed women like Gujia to, break free from those expectations of staying home.
Instead of just being a wife and mother, she's building this business.
Exactly.
Even though her husband's the face of it.
Exactly. She's ambitious, and she's not afraid to go after what she wants.
But the show also depicts her interacting with those wealthy housewives in her building, right?
Yeah.
Like, she bakes for them. She's strategic about her moves.
Right.
She even buys an expensive Hermes bag just to fit in.
You're picking up on something really important here.
Okay, what?
Gujia is practicing guanxi.
Guanxi.
Yeah, it's this art of building relationships for mutual benefit.
Oh, yeah.
It's deeply rooted in Chinese culture,
Uh-huh.
but it's taking on a new dimension.
So how does guanxi relate to individualization then?
Well, alongside guanxi, she's also engaging in zurin.
Zorin.
Yeah, which means making yourself a human being.
Interesting.
It's this idea of helping others achieve what they desire
Okay.
in order to achieve your own goals.
Oh, so she's not just networking for her own benefit.
No.
She's actually trying to help these other women too.
Exactly. And the paper breaks zurin down into three parts: the individual, the self, and the person.
Okay, I need you to break those down for me.
Okay, so the individual is all about her own desires.
Like her self-interest?
Exactly. She wants to succeed and secure her family's future.
Okay.
The self is about her constantly evaluating her actions,
Mm.
making strategic choices to reach her goals.
Yeah, and the
The person is about her fulfilling a social role within that group of women.
So that's where the Hermes bag comes in.
Right. It's not just a status symbol.
It's a way to gain access to that exclusive circle.
Exactly.
It's a good example of how individual aspirations and those social dynamics intersect in this world of individualization.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so we've talked about how individualization is changing things like marriage and career ambitions in China.
Right.
But I'm guessing it goes even deeper than that, right?
Yeah, for sure.
What about just like people's personal desires,
Yeah.
things that they want in their lives?
Absolutely. As individuals gain more autonomy,
Okay.
their personal desires become more important.
It's interesting you mention that because the show features all this luxury stuff.
Yeah.
Wang Manni sells high-end handbags.
Right.
Gujia's neighbors flaunt their wealth.
Oh?
Is that a new thing in China?
It's definitely becoming more common.
Okay.
The paper connects it to individualization.
So as people gain more economic freedom, they want to buy nice things, status symbols.
It's like a way to express themselves.
So it's not just about meeting those basic needs anymore. It's about expressing yourself
Exactly.
through what you own.
And it's not just material goods either.
Oh.
Individualization is impacting how people think about sexuality,
Correct.
emotional fulfillment, all that.
Like Wang Manni's casual relationship with that guy who doesn't want to get married.
Yeah, exactly.
That's pretty different from traditional expectations.
Totally. It really challenges those old norms.
And then there's Guji's husband.
Right.
His infidelity is a big part of the show.
It makes you think about how individual desires impact marriage, you know?
So the show doesn't shy away from showing how complicated relationships can be.
Exactly.
What about Xiaotong, though? Where does she fit into all of this?
She's interesting
Yeah.
because she still values that traditional marriage and family.
Okay.
But even her journey is complicated.
In what way?
Well, she struggles with her husband, they get divorced,
Oh, wow.
and then she remarries.
Okay.
It shows that even with all this individualization,
Yeah.
finding happiness is still hard.
So there's no one right way to find fulfillment,
That's
even in a society that's embracing individual choice.
Exactly.
I wonder, though, are there downsides to this whole individualization thing?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
And it's something the paper addresses.
Okay.
Individualization can be empowering, but there can be drawbacks.
Like what?
One concern is that it might weaken traditional family structures.
How so?
Well, as people focus more on their own needs,
Right.
those family ties might loosen.
So it's like choosing personal happiness over family duty.
Yeah, and you see hints of that in the show.
Okay.
Wang Manni not wanting to settle down.
Right.
Gujia's husband's infidelity.
Okay.
Those are like microcosms of larger societal trends.
The paper mentions rising divorce rates,
Right.
young people delaying marriage.
Even foregoing it altogether.
It's like a trade-off then.
In a way.
More individual freedom, less emphasis on family.
It's a complicated issue.
Yeah.
And sociologists are studying it closely.
So how do you balance those two things?
That's the challenge facing China today.
Okay.
How to embrace individualization without losing that sense of community.
It's like walking a tightrope.
Exactly.
The paper says this balancing act is happening everywhere, even in the economy.
Right. We talked about how it's fueled entrepreneurship.
But what about the downsides?
Well, one concern is the growing gap between rich and poor.
Oh, okay.
As people pursue their own goals,
Yeah.
those who already have advantages might pull further ahead.
We see that in the show, too.
Right.
Gujia and her neighbors live such a different life.
The show highlights those disparities.
And it makes you wonder about social mobility.
Definitely.
Is everyone benefiting equally?
Or is it just those with privilege?
That's a tough question.
It is, and it's something policymakers are dealing with.
So as China keeps moving towards individualization, what should we be watching for?
Well, one big thing is how the government responds.
Okay.
Will they embrace these changes?
Yeah.
Or try to control them?
That could really change things.
And then there's the question of how it'll impact families.
Right.
Will those traditional values adapt?
What about the economic impact?
Yeah. Will they address that wealth gap?
So many questions.
I know. The answers aren't clear.
Yeah.
But one thing's for sure. China's journey towards individualization, it's not over yet.
It really makes you think, like, is this just a China thing? Or is it happening in other parts of the world, too?
Oh, it's definitely a global thing.
Yeah.
Individualization is happening everywhere.
Okay.
It's driven by, like, globalization, technology, rising living standards.
So we're all becoming more individualistic.
It looks different in different places.
Yeah, okay.
It happens at different speeds.
Right.
but the basic trend is the same.
People want more autonomy.
Yeah, they're prioritizing their own needs.
Are there any, like, specific examples of that?
Oh, yeah, tons.
Like what?
Well, like Japan.
Okay.
They've seen this huge decline in marriage rates and birth rates.
Wow, really?
Yeah, because younger generations are prioritizing freedom.
Okay.
It's actually called the herbivore men phenomenon.
Herbivore men. I've never heard of that.
Basically, it's these men who aren't interested in traditional masculine roles.
Like getting married, having a career.
Exactly. And they're not so focused on material possessions either.
Interesting. So they're redefining what it means to be a man.
In a way. Yeah.
So it's not just about women breaking free from tradition.
Right. Men are changing too.
That's what makes this whole thing so interesting.
It's not just about individual choices.
Right.
It's about challenging those societal norms we all take for granted.
It's like a domino effect.
Totally. It's changing everything.
And that can be good and bad, right?
For sure.
Individualization can lead to progress.
Yeah, and innovation and liberation.
But it can also lead to more competition.
Yeah.
Social isolation.
Even a weakening of those traditional support systems.
So how do we make sure it's more good than bad?
I think that's the key.
Yeah.
Figuring out how to manage this transition.
So what choices do we make?
As individuals and as a society.
That's a great way to put it.
Individualization is this powerful force.
Uh-huh.
But it's not happening in a vacuum.
Right. It's happening in this context of...
Social structures.
Okay.
Cultural norms, economics.
And how we respond to that is what matters.
It determines whether it's a good thing or a bad thing.
I feel like this whole conversation has been really eye-opening.
Good.
It's given me a new way to think about what's happening.
Yeah.
Not just in China, but all over.
So, as we wrap up,
yeah,
what are some things we should remember
as we navigate this crazy new world?
Well, I think the most important thing is to just be mindful.
Mindful of what?
Our choices.
Okay.
Our desires. And how they impact others.
So, like, are we just thinking about ourselves?
Right. Or are we thinking about the community?
Are we making the world a better place?
Or we're making things worse?
It's a good reminder that we all have a part to play in this.
Absolutely. We can't just sit back and watch.
We have to be active participants.
Exactly.
Well, this has been a fascinating deep dive.
Thanks for having me.
And to everyone listening, keep exploring these ideas.
Yeah, keep questioning.
Keep trying to make the world a better place.
Absolutely.
Thanks for listening to The Deep Dive.